Good morning, dear guests, listeners, and viewers to SmartFactory Kunshan, to our panel today. My name is Frank. I'm managing partner of SmartFactory Kunshan, and today I'd like to share some insights about how Industry 4.0 and IIoT is shaping the future of manufacturing in Germany and in China. And for this topic, I have gladly here today at my table and online on screen three experts on the topic. On the screen, we see Eric Walenza. Eric is the CEO of IoT One. IoT One is a research and advisory firm specialized in digitalization. They have in-depth knowledge within the global IIoT ecosystem. Eric is also director of Startup Grind Accelerator and co-chair of the American Chamber of Commerce Technology and Innovation Committee. Good morning, Eric. Then next to me is Florian Weihard, CTO of ruhlamat Automation Technologies and General Manager of ruhlamat Smart Technologies. Ruhlamat is a German specialist for developing and manufacturing highly complex automation and assembly systems for the fields of automations, medical tech, alternative energy sectors, and for very interesting. Florian is also a chairman of the board of the DUSA. This is the Association for European Companies in Suzhou. Morning, Florian.
Thank you, Frank.
And I have Daniel Yu here in Shanghai. Daniel is the chief rep of the German Engineering Industry Association. The German abbreviation is ETMA. And with more than 3,300 members in Germany, this is the largest network organization for mechanical engineering in Germany and Europe. And of course, in this way, very important voice at home and abroad. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you very much for having me.
So our topic today is Industry 4.0 and IIoT. So we have very deep insights in both areas, Germany and China. So my question to start this topic: what's the main difference in the development, the engagement of manufacturers into Industry 4.0 IIoT, Germany and China? And once they are engaged, what are the consequences for the markets and for the manufacturers?
Yeah, so ruhlamat, we are an automation company, and actually a little bit different than most of the German companies, because our biggest location is in China, in Suzhou, with 700 people and 230 in the R&D. And we are developing here not just the machines also, but especially also software, so IoT, Industry 4.0 software, and for example, also AI vision technology and applications out of China. So we use China not just as a market, but also really as a R&D and a development place. So from this perspective, we see the Industry 4.0 adoption from this perspective. On the one hand side, selling software to the companies, on the other side, also developing the software here in China. And there are a lot of difference actually between Germany and China. And I think the most important differences are that in Germany we have a very technical discussion around IoT. So we talk about what is the system, how do I need it, how does it work, and so on. And in China it's a more practical approach. Actually, the technology is not really that important. It is important how can it help? What is the benefit out of that? And so companies are more willing to adopt technologies here if it solves a problem and focusing on that. this opens the door to really make decisions faster because you have not so much discussions about the technology, and finally also adopt it faster. There's a total different picture in Germany from my perspective, where everybody's a little bit more skeptical about technologies. How does it fit all together in a company? And in China, it's more like, okay, it solves my problem. Let's go. And this is it's a great opportunity for us. And at the same time, I want to highlight that in China, actually, it does not mean that Chinese companies or China is adopting technologies differently than German companies in Germany. Actually, it's all companies in China. Also, a German company in China, from my perspective, as long as the headquarter in Germany is maybe not interfering too much, they are also in this way. They are also more willing and more open to adapt it faster, developing it together with us and sharing actually ideas. So this is a great opinion.
I mean, for me as a German, I'm glad to hear that the innovation goes beyond just the pure technology and putting the machine together, as we Germans known for these technologies and export champions. To have the software there as well. But now in this current landscape of IIoT Industry 4.0, what are currently these top solutions that come from German companies exported into the world and to China? Just heard, like ruhlamat, they do it already here. What is offered from Germany, and from your personal experience, how do these solutions change the way of our German traditional manufacturing in both countries?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for having me here again. I would like to start with the fact that China is actually one of the most important export destinations for German mechanical engineering products, basically. Since this year, China also became actually the #1 export market. It's also now bigger than the USA. We are consisting in Germany out of roughly 40 industrial sectors, call them associations, that there you have an automation integrator, basically, who is also very active in developing like their own software right now. I think that is, for example, going into that direction. But I think it's really difficult to really say or to pinpoint down what is the Industry 4.0 solution. I think when it comes to Industry 4.0, from our perspective, it is a system, a network that you have to create. I think the original idea of 4.0 was to build a network. That's why also we have the term IoT, Internet of Things. Yeah, and I think it's a lot about communication. Yeah, so therefore also the Electrical Automation Sub-Association and the members in there play a very important role, because they are producing the components basically that are enabling the communication between machines. Yeah, so we
if
are.
I may ask, what kind of components could that be?
Yeah, you have like, for example, sensors. I mean, like we are sitting here in your factory, and I've been here many times. I know that, for example, one of our member companies, Baluf, has a pressure sensor developed as an example under your stairs. Yeah, and when you walk on that sensor, it kind of like gives a signal to a warning lamp, basically. Yeah, and it tells you if the pressure is too high. Yeah, so if the pressure is too high, then you will hear a sound.
Or can we ask a little bit provocative?
Yeah.
Can we, from your point of view, can we hold this position for the foreseeable future?
Yes. Okay, so first of all, I would have to say that I think China, as I mentioned also already before, like China is still a very important export destination. I think it's going to stay like that for the next few years, I would have to say. But we've been also looking into the future. There has been done a study just recently, and in that study we have been looking a little bit into the future. Yeah, so obviously, I mean, like Florian probably will be able to confirm that. And also, like in all of the talks that I'm going or having with member companies, obviously the pressure from local competition is getting higher. On the other hand, I definitely have to say that because of like programs that we all know of, like Made in China 2025 and so on, China has a hunger for higher technology, basically. Yeah? So that actually also would give us the possibility to participate more in that sense. There are obviously you will have also Chinese companies coming up more from the medium segment going up to the higher segment, and the competition is getting more fierce. But I think there are certain technologies and industrial areas where German companies will definitely still have a very good participation in the market also in the future. Yeah? Like for example, in the robotics and automation field, or also in the electrical automation field that I've mentioned. There are definitely areas where I think German companies will participate for a longer time also here in this market. When you talk nowadays to those kind of companies, and if you ask them like how are the order takes coming in, so I think we are experiencing right now very good years. Yeah, I mean even last year, even the year of the pandemic. Yeah, we had of course like some problems in the beginning. Yeah, but I would say in the second half of 2020, you could already feel a lot of recovery and support from our member companies that the business is going up again. And now you're even talking to some of the companies, and they are saying that the order intake is so high. Yeah, it's almost it's very difficult to keep up with all the order intakes. Yeah, so I think China is going to be still a very interesting destination for German companies, yeah, and I think also for Industry 4.0 solution providers, it's going to be still a very attractive market.
Maybe can I add one thing from a company perspective?
Sure.
So I think the question is German company, what is that? Because in the end, we are ruhlamat Automation has 700 people here, 2 Germans. So that's kind of a Chinese company. Yes. So we are complaining about very often about Chinese companies being so successful. Exactly. So actually we are a Chinese company which is successful. But the difference is we are 100% owned by a German company. Yeah, yeah. So in the end of the day, we are a very German company, but leveraging fully localized. The Chinese access to all the initiatives from Industry 4.0, from the Made in China 2025, the market, the technology, the talents, the approach from China. I think this is something you can leverage as a German company and then bring it to the world. And it's still a German nation, but very much in a kind of a local way.
Yeah. I think that kind of thinking is also maybe a little bit related to the history. Yeah, I mean, like, let's say German products and companies are here exporting. In the beginning, it was more about exporting, right? Like, so like 20, 30 years ago, you probably exported your products here. And then, let's say maybe around 10, 15 years ago, companies also started to localize. And I think especially also during the pandemic time, I think that was another push for our member companies to really think this through, yeah, because I mean you have difficulties to bring the technical experts into the country, yeah, and more companies are thinking about further developing their localization rate. Also, not only for the location in production, but also setting up R&D. Like Florian has just basically said it, yeah, like they are also investing a lot of their investments into R&D, developing a new software which is coming out of China. Yeah, and obviously also, I think the localizations plays a very important role. Yeah, so, but like from a historical point of view, I would say that's why we always talk about like, you know, like China as an export market, but we have 3,300 corporate members in Germany, listed members in Germany, but we can say that roughly 1/3 of our member companies are doing business here and also are represented in some form here as a registered company. So that is definitely a statement, I would say.
Good point. Yeah. When we talk about Made in China 2025 and innovation here in the country, I think we go to our next expert, Eric, because with his company IoT One, he is constantly being involved in digital use cases and new technologies and use cases. So, Eric, we're keen to know from your point of view, how does the innovation landscape in China in terms of smart manufacturing and IIoT look like, and which technologies and solution can we expect to appear not only in China, also at the world stage in the coming years, developed and offered ex-China? Eric.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Frank, for the question, and thanks for inviting me to join the conversation today. So China is a complex market, and I think because of that, you have people that are highly pessimistic or skeptical about China, and then you have other people that are expecting China to somehow take over the world economically. And the reality is that, as with any large market, there's a lot of segments and diversity in terms of capabilities and competencies, and that's certainly the case here. So, if we look at this, let's say Industry 4.0 technology development in China, we can segment the market in a few different ways. We can look at it from a government perspective in terms of what are the incentives and the policy support, and that's very important here. We can look at it from an entrepreneurial perspective, where is venture capital going? And we can look at it also from the perspective of the traditional companies that are certainly entering into this market. So maybe starting with government, because everything in China starts there somehow. Clearly, this is a priority, right? So China wants to be a strong nation technologically, and because of the manufacturing footprint, this is critical. So if we look at the recently announced 14th five-year plan, this topics of digitalization, industrial digital, upgrading, these are really prominent topics here, and there's a lot of motivation there to develop digital capabilities, and they're providing support on both sides, right? They're providing support on the technology development side, but also on the adoption side, because you really need a market to adopt these technologies if they're going to scale beyond the startup phase. So the 14th five-year plan, of course, is a very high level plan. It doesn't get much into the details. Those are starting to roll out, but already there's a lot of very specific policy support. So, for example, in Guangdong, if you are a Chinese SaaS provider, you can get the first year of your SaaS solution subsidized by the local government for any customers, so any factories operating in that space. So that allows you to get your first adopters, and they can then decide whether they want to continue the subscription after that first year, but the government will pay for the first year. So that's obviously a very direct way to kind of help with that valley of death issue and make sure that revenue is actually coming into young companies, but doing it in a kind of a market-oriented way where somebody still has to actually adopt your technology, and in order for that to happen. So government is very strong, strongly supporting technology development in this space. They're starting to shift their position, I think, a little bit between or around the topic of entrepreneurship. So, for example, in the 14th five-year plan, we didn't really see language that we'd seen previously around mass entrepreneurship. So there seems to be somewhat of a step away from that towards more supporting the existing companies in China, of which, of course, there are really tens of thousands in this operating somehow in this space. And so, what I expect we might start to see in the future is policies less supporting mass entrepreneurship, but more supporting small and medium businesses to scale up. We, of course, still have a very vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem here. A lot of the technologies that we're seeing in China are, coming from a couple areas. So, related to Industry 4.0. One is robotics. So still most of the critical components are coming from abroad, but there's a lot of innovation around the form factor. How do we reduce the price structure? We have robots that kind of emulate these walking dogs that we see out of Universal Robots, or not Universal. What is this American firm? But at a price point of like 3,000 USD, whereas you might be paying 40,000 for the American product. So really radical shifts in the cost structure. We have companies like Geek Plus, which in the AMR, kind of the autonomous drone for logistics, that are, I would say, by now market leading. I think they have something like 15,000 devices in the market today, and are growing that probably 50% or more year over year now. So we have companies that can leverage the engineering and hardware capability and the speed to market from China, and then build the digital solution around that. So this is really an area where I expect China to succeed, even if the critical components are coming from abroad for maybe the next decade. I think China will really bring the cost structure of a lot of different types of robotic solutions down, and allow those to ramp up, and then seize kind of a strong position in those markets. We also on the software side see, from a SaaS perspective, a lot of effort towards simplification. So of course, China has a lot of big manufacturing base. In many ways, it's big but not strong, and that's kind of a term that the government uses. So it's often not particularly sophisticated in terms of the processes, which makes it maybe very difficult to use a Siemens solution, or maybe a more complicated solution that somebody might use in Germany or in a Western market. So there's really a market space for MES type solutions, these types of collaborative paperless manufacturing solutions that are significantly scaled down in terms of complexity. So we have companies like Blacklake that I think provide quite good options there, and often the price is also again brought down to something like starting point 10,000 euro per factory per year, which really makes it possible for SMEs to adopt this type of solution. So we see a lot of innovation, basically adopting consumer best practices around app development by Chinese SaaS companies. And we also see innovation on the machine learning side. I would say China is still not in this area market leading there. Of course, they have a lot of competence in the country, but that still tends to be heavily concentrated in e-commerce and fintech. So it's a bit hard for a manufacturing company to acquire that talent. So that's, I would say, still not yet market leading globally, but there's activity there. Another area where we see a lot of development in China is in platform as a service, these types of platform business models. And that's coming from startups, but it's also coming from many established companies. So we have Sany Root Cloud. So Sany is a big construction equipment manufacturer, and they've developed a platform for manufacturing. We have Haier Cosmoplat. So Haier is a big white goods manufacturer, building their Cosmoplat platform also for manufacturing. Lenovo, Huawei, Alibaba. We have Sinopec and these kinds of oil and gas, state-owned enterprises are developing their own platforms that they're using internally and then selling up and down the supply chain to their partners. So you have a lot of the big players who are saying, hey, basically, we have a big manufacturing base, so we need some kind of platform for ourselves internally. Why don't we develop it, use it internally, then we can sell it to our supply chain partners upstream, downstream, and then we can, sell it more generally in the market. And so they're coming into this space. So very diversified environment in China. I would expect in the near term, most of the technology built in China will stay in China, especially most of the software. But I think it will be more, competitive here. The hardware, like Geek Plus, I think 50% of their orders, or more than 50%, are already exported abroad. So I certainly will see a lot of these robotic solutions, smart sensor solutions, these types of solutions being exported abroad. And then in the medium long term, I think China's going to be competitive in a lot of these areas, but it'll take time. It's harder to start up a new company and enter in this market than it is in consumer markets, because trust, with the customer base, sales cycles, these are all much longer. The asset lifetimes are much longer. So it will take, I think, more time for them to become competitive globally in the smart factory market.
Yeah, you answered my question that I had already. So I'm happy to hear, as representing manufacturers here, that
there's certainly companies that do have a very strong export focus already, but for the vast majority, I think they'll be focused on the domestic market for the next 5-10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I would be curious about one thing, Eric, if I also can ask a question. Sure. That was very interesting. How many companies are found in China? How many startups which are actually founded by foreign founders and then use China as an innovation platform to really develop a product for the global market? How big is that, and is that growing?
Yeah, so you might be a bit of a rare breed there, Florian. I think it's not very many. So this is one topic that the Chinese government has talked about a lot, trying to attract more talent internationally into China. They of course have a lot of government programs providing subsidies for foreign founders, or kind of awards, right? If you set up a business here, um, I haven't seen many big success cases there.
Oh,
Yeah,
surprising.
and of course, COVID, for the past year and a half, COVID has also made it very difficult, for companies to come here. But yeah, I think it's so certainly a lot of people are working with Chinese partners. They're manufacturing here, but I think there's a strong business case. I see more multinational companies than looking to China and saying, let's set up a digital hub in China because they can do things twice as fast and at half the cost of what we might do in Europe. So I think there is that mentality. But for an entrepreneur to pick up and move to China, because of the language barriers and so forth, I think it's still, it's still a challenge, and I don't see many people actually making that move right now.
But from my knowledge, I think this is still also kind of like in the beginning phase, right? I mean, like if you look into the last 5 to 10 years, I think the B2C market in there has developed strongly. I've also been talking to like some German entrepreneurs who are actually in that field. Like Fabian von Heimburg, he's also the chief representative for the German Startup Association from Berlin. And from his statements, I can say that he still sees a lot of potential for example, German startup companies in the B2B area to come to China actually and to try to build and offer their products here in this market. Yeah, so I believe like we're still in the beginning phase, so maybe therefore we don't have a lot of examples. But I think for the future, there's still probably a lot of growth potential there. That is my opinion.
Well, I would agree. And I think we have to look at this from two perspectives. One's the market perspective. So is there a market for your technology here? And the second is, do you actually want to set up an entity in China and run your R&D out of here and basically become a Chinese business that's run by foreign founders? I think for the first one, 100% agree. There's a great market here. I would generally recommend that people build channel partnerships and try not to do so much direct sales. I think that is difficult for a smaller foreign company in China. But there's a big hunger for technology, so there's definitely a market. Does it make sense to actually set up your R&D here? I think you could make the case it does, but you need to have the right management team and the mentality. And I don't see many people doing that right now. And I think over the past decade, we've actually had kind of a net exodus of foreigners. So we have fewer Germans, fewer Americans in China today than we did 10 years ago. Maybe a lot of those were English teachers, but nonetheless, we haven't yet seen.
You mentioned government and subsidies, and we had already in 2017 the recognition of Industry 4.0 topic on a government level. Ms. Merkel and Li Keqiang have signed an agreement to cooperate on that topic, and then of course they don't do it by themselves. They forwarded these tasks to their relevant ministries, to the German Ministry of Industry and Energy and the Education Ministry, and on the Chinese side to the Ministry of to the MIIT and the MOST. Then they have established working groups, including universities, institutes, and corporates, and they meet in Berlin and Beijing on an annual basis. And by the way, also where we're sitting in here, the SmartFactory Kunshan is also one lighthouse project of this. So, but still, there's a long way from this kind of level and the slogan and conferences to the shop floor. So we are all involved daily on a much more practical level into this topic. So last question to to everybody, not to the government at the first place, but what is needed? What would the startup or the small Chinese innovative company need to bring them forward? What would the PDMA or a company as ruhlamat need to really bring this IIoT topic onto the shop floor, into the daily usage? Maybe I start with Eric.
Challenging question. I think if we're talking about getting adoption in China, I think it all starts with education of the manufacturers. So we need them to have the right talent. We need the right success cases, because people tend to copy each other. So if I'm producing remote controls and there's 2 other remote control companies in my city and they adopt something, I'm definitely going to adopt that, right? If it shows value. So and I think this is what the government's doing, right? They're really trying to motivate people to be first adopters. They're trying to incentivize kind of upskilling of people, because I think this is the big gap right now. It's you need success cases that are very visible, and you need the right processes and the right people in place so that they can actually make effective use of the technologies. And then I think the technologies will be adopted because they do provide a lot of value. And I think we already have enough maturity actually on the technology side. I think it's really more on the operator side where we have a bit of a gap right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Florian, from you.
Yeah, from company perspective, I agree with Eric. So the manufacturers need to be educated to know what and how to adopt it. That's one story, but actually that's not our bottleneck, at least from our side. So we have a fit, we have our niche, we know what we can do. The market is huge. Our problem is talents. That is in China, I think right now very difficult, but actually all over the world. How to get programmers, full stack developers, how to get them, and at reasonable cost is also becoming an issue right now. So this is our real bottleneck in China to really scale, to be successful. That is keeping us right now more than we could be. I hope we can solve this problem next years.
Okay. Other needs, yeah. Daniel.
Yeah, so since I'm representing the VDMA, I think what the manufacturing world needs in order to really implement and execute an Industry 4.0 landscape, I think is standards. So that's why we're also pushing very strongly the global production language, which we call OPCUA, so that basically in the sensor technologies and so on that are being used in the industry are all able to communicate in the perfect language with each other, because if you cannot connect the machines with each other and the systems with each other, then you don't need to talk about 4.0.
All right. Okay, so from my point of view, maybe we can help a little bit to all of your topics, because we are sitting here in the Smart Factory in Kunshan, which is dedicated to be a platform, offline, mainly offline, also online hub. And what's the platform doing? To bring people together as a hub for Industry 4.0. Maybe can help to bring the customers, the companies, and the providers of the technology together. Maybe can help Florian to find the talents through trainings and education programs that we do here. And with this little introduction where we are right now, I would like to come to an end of this interesting discussion. Thank you, gentlemen, all, for your time this morning, together with me. And thanks a lot to TechNode and IMT for arranging this and setting this up. And Eric, thanks for joining in. I hope I see you soon in person. And I wish everybody a great day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.